Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Trey Ball. We are at the end of another week of NBA basketball, and as you can see, COVID is starting to pick up throughout the league. A lot of teams are being affected by it. It's going to be interesting to see how teams move forward from this. I just seen the other night. I mean, Boston and Miami had to postpone their game because each team only had 7 players that they could put out on the floor. Philadelphia had that situation a couple days ago, so you're starting to see COVID started to make a bigger presence than it did obviously last season when they were in the bubble for several months. So, like I said, it'd be interesting to see how Adam Silver makes adjustments or where the adjustments may need to be had. I'm thinking in my mind, I think it would be smart to have um, a division bubble where each division takes all 5 teams, just put them in a smaller bubble, and they just play out the division games maybe 2 or 3 weeks at a time, and then it just be like a road trip pretty much. That's one option. I've seen that thrown around quite a bit. I don't think it's a bad idea considering the amount of travel that would be cut. I mean, by more than half, and you limit how much contact players have with unauthorized personnel, so on and so forth. Limited contact with fans. I've seen some fans in some arenas. I don't know how much contact is being had between players and fans at this point, but you just limit the possibility to find yourself in a situation where COVID is wiping out more than half your team and also more than half of your coaching staff. I think that's something that we're going to see in the next couple of days. It was announced earlier this week that Adam Silver is Adam Silver okayed the bubble for February, so we're going to see versus having the bubble start. I believe it was last year. It started in maybe April or May. It's going to start this year. It's going to start in February, where we would actually normally see the All-Star game, but as that got postponed. So, starting to see COVID take over. Some teams were able to get a head start on the season. Get their rhythm going before COVID even struck. You've seen the 76ers. They're number one in the Eastern Conference with a 7-3 record. Boston is 7-3. Indiana has been hanging in as well. Sabonis came back after having that injury in the bubble last year, or getting to the bubble, he had that injury. So it's good to see all these teams get ahead. Embiid, he's making his presence felt. He's putting up, I wouldn't say necessarily breakaway MVP numbers, but he is doing his job. He's taking his job very seriously this year, and that's what I like to see from a big man, being absolutely dominant each and every game, each and every time he steps on the floor. He did miss a couple games, and Dwight Howard had to step in, but that's always going to be the case with him. Health is always going to be an issue. We knew that coming into the league out of Kansas. Embiid's health was always going to be a problem, but you take the good with the bad, unless the bad outweighs the good. And so far, so good this year. We've seen over the past couple seasons he has been an all-star. So it's not like you're just looking for an opportunity to get rid of him. He's not somebody that you're going to trade away. He's somebody that you're going to continue to build around and hope the team makes adjustments. I think one of the biggest things was bringing in more shooters. You have Danny Green, you have Seth Curry now added into the mix. Seth Curry has been playing great for them. He had a couple 20, 25-point games for them already through the season. Ben Simmons is being Ben Simmons. Even though, like I said, his injury history is still at the forefront of everybody's minds. When he's on the floor, he's going to produce. And right now, him and Embiid have produced enough to give him a 7-3 lead before, like I said, COVID struck them. Boston is in a unique position as well because they too are down 7 players. Like I mentioned, they canceled the game with Miami. That's a very important matchup for them. So if they were going that game with only 7 players versus Miami's full roster, they would have absolutely been obliterated. Not because Miami's just so far and away above Boston and so far better than Boston. It's just that when you're playing a great team like Miami and when Miami's playing a great team like Boston, you need every single guy on deck. You need to have all your guys available. If they're not able to do that, the writing was on the wall for that game, but unfortunately for Miami, they had the same situation, so it was agreed upon that they canceled that game. We seen earlier in the week they had a very good back and forth game. I do think when Miami beat Boston by the tip in by Pritchard, the 2-point tip in, I think The big thing in that game was you took Olynyk and Duncan Robinson off of the floor when they were the only two guys that were able to hit outside shots the entire game. So you remove them from the equation and you give Boston that 10-point lead going into the final minute of the game. Luckily, you're able to come back with some, hiccups by Boston, but also Dragic hit some big shots and made some big plays, and Bam and Olynyk, I think they've been starting games very well, but I think it's important to finish the game with those two guys in order to give you a chance to win each and every night. Because I've been hard on Leonard, wanting to get him traded, only because he does make bonehead plays and does take poor shots. When he's not in the rhythm and it's not in the rhythm of the offense. But I will admit, coming out this year, he wasn't a starter. He fought his way into the starting lineup over Myers Leonard. He's been playing very well. He's put up a 13 plus points in each of his games that he's been a starter. So I think they're gonna have a good look moving forward. I'm still unsure about Tyler Hero playing a point guard, but he's a scorer. He has that scorer's mentality. As I always compare him to a young Mike Miller and a swagger of Jason Williams back in the day, but I think him under the tutelage of Eric Spoelstra and under the tutelage of Jimmy, I think they're gonna make a monster out of him yet. I mean, we seen what he did in the playoffs last year. I just see more to come for him. And right now they're 4-4, but health has been an issue for them, like it has many of the elite teams. I mean, you see Brooklyn. They're without Kevin Durant one game, they're out with Kyrie the other game, then they're missing both of them on the same night. Those guys have been, in and out of the lineup for Brooklyn. So, there's a lot of shuffling to be done in the NBA right now, but I do see some bright spots. You look at Charlotte. Gordon Hayward looks to be back to the Utah Gordon that we've seen. I think he put up like 40 the other night. He has himself a heck of a game. We've seen the first triple double. Melo Ball is officially the youngest player in NBA history with a triple double. I believe he's 19. That was a great game. 22, 12, and 11. Very efficient from the field that game. I like the way he was moving the ball. I do think, sometimes it is exaggerated that everything he does is just absolutely amazing. But I mean, a lot of people hated on him coming into the league, same way they did Lonzo because of their dad. I mean, he's a loudmouth, arrogant guy, but he takes pride in his kids, so I can't be mad at him for that. But when you take that hate and you put it on Melo, you better know what you're talking about. If you haven't watched him play, look up some highlights, look up some film, because this guy, he has a very high basketball IQ. He makes smart plays. I haven't really seen him make any bullhead plays so far. In his first 8 to 10 games. I haven't really seen that from him. I think one of the biggest things and the adjustments on Melo's part is adjusting to the defensive game, adjusting to the pace and the style of play, because you see him, he kind of falls asleep sometimes. He's a little late on his closeouts. Um, the speed is a lot different than it is overseas. And, he hasn't played college basketball. So we're going back to high school to professional basketball overseas. And it's just not the same speed, the not same pace. So you have to be quicker on your rotations. You have to be quicker when you're closing out. You have to know what the next rotation is, first of all, because especially with the way the game is played now, it's a very swing into a 3-point shot. And if you're not closing out to the right guy, you could be letting your other teammates down who had your back. So, learning the defensive game of the NBA is going to be important for him. I really hate the fact that Markelle Fultz went down with a torn ACL. That's going to be a big hit for Orlando because they really had it rolling for a while. I always say that Orlando is a problem for elite teams that fall asleep at the wheel. They always catch somebody sleeping, whether it's Milwaukee, Toronto, Miami. They always catch those top tier teams sleeping because they have talent. They just don't always, close the game out because they don't have a superstar. And that's really my only issue with that team. They play great defense. They have scorers and Ross, Vucevic. They have Evan Fournier, guys like that, and then you add in the rookie Cole Anthony into the mix with Markelle Fultz. There was a lot of talent on that team, and there was a promising season for Markelle Fultz because he was starting to get back to himself. You've seen the bounce, you've seen the lift. He was hitting shots, getting to the basket, running the offense. So it was a very exciting season ahead of Fultz. But it just sucks it had to end the way it did, especially with him finally being back healthy. Um, the New York Knicks still surprised. First of all, it's nothing to write home about. They're not number one in the conference or anything like that. But to be 5-5 through 10 games is a big deal for a team that's normally 2-8, maybe 1-9. Or at this point, they might sneak one in and get lucky. But I think one of the biggest things for them has been Julius Randle. He was averaging close to a triple double through the first 8 or 9 games. Austin Rivers had a big fourth quarter. He's one of my surprise performances from last week when he had that 14 straight points against Utah. I think he put up maybe 4 threes, something like that, maybe 4 3-pointers. Hit some very big shots down the stretch in that game. Outdueled Donovan Mitchell. That was surprising to me that Donovan didn't really uh, put more effort into responding to him on the offensive end, really ending his run individually. So Austin Rivers got the nod on that night, and like I said, 5-5 for the Knicks is something to be proud of at this point if you're a Knicks fan. Luka Doncic, he had a big triple double against Houston. Granted, they can't really get guys to show up to work at this point, but a triple dub is a triple dub. So Luka's still doing Luka things. Jason Tatum had 40 points against Toronto earlier in the week. Uh, Steph Curry 38 and 11 against the Clippers. That was a huge comeback because I mean, if I'm the Clippers, I have Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, I still have Lou Will, Ibaka. I still have a lot of guys, that are at that star level that can produce and put away a bad team. And Golden State, the way Steph has been playing right now, 30 and 11 coming off the 62 points. He had 30 in the game before they played the Clippers, I believe. He's on a roll. Even though he had a bad game against Toronto, what you needed from Steph was to give his other teammates life, to give them other guys uh, a spark at this point. So he did his job, even though he didn't hold up his end of the bargain last night. They still came out with the win because he gave everybody else confidence in their game to go out and perform, and just leave it out all on the court. And the addition of Draymond Green back into the lineup, that doesn't hurt. I mean, you have uh, it's debatable whether he's in the Hall of Fame or not, but still, you have an All-Star, you have a Defensive Player of the Year, you have a guy that can run the point guard position from the forward position and get you, 7 to 10 or 11 or 12 assists every game just by, finding the right guy, hitting the open man. Kelly Oubre, I seen a number on him. If he's not missing all the shots that he's has been missing, I believe he's like 6 for 20 something or something of that nature from the 3 point line. I mean, if he's not missing those shots, then they're the top 4 team in the NBA from the 3 point line. So that, I mean, they're one guy away from being a great shooting team. So now that he's hitting jump shots here and there, I mean, I think you can keep the defense honest enough to get some wins and spread the floor a little bit more for Steph to do, get to the pick and roll game, come off screens, pin downs, knocks down some open threes for himself, get back into the room, and that's what we saw in that Clippers game. Oubre was able to keep him honest. Steph was able to do more in the open court that we've seen, and then I like Pascal. Pascal has got to get his game going on a more consistent basis. We've seen him last season, on a bad team, but now he's on a good team, and I think he could be a valuable piece to Steph's game and Draymond's game and the rookie. I think he can add something to this offense and find his niche where he can get that 15 to 20 every single game. Whether Wiggins has it going or not, which he's a pickaboo type of player. I mean, one minute you see him, one minute you don't, and you don't even realize he's played 35 to 40 minutes in the game. You really, he's the box of chocolates for the Warriors. You don't know what you're going to get. So to have a guy like Pascal that can go get his own shot, it's going to be important for them this season. They're at 6-4 right now. I don't see them, vaulting to the top of the conference, but I do see them being in that 5, 6, or 7 range and in the playoffs if they can keep this up. Um, One of my biggest surprises, I mean, I'm not saying that the Lakers and the Clippers aren't playing great basketball. They have elite players. Clippers have Kawhi and PG, like I said. The Lakers have AD, LeBron. You add in Trez and Schroeder. You add a lot of pieces to them. They're great teams. But the surprise is the Phoenix Suns. When you look at Phoenix, you have Devin Booker, you have Chris Paul, you have DeAndre Ayton, um, Jay Crowder was added over the off season. What I like out of them is there's not just one guy doing it. I mean, you have random nights. You have Michael Bridges show up. He had 34 the other night against Indiana. Devin Booker still playing at a very good level. Chris Paul, obviously a leader. Cam Johnson showing up. You know, you have different guys stepping up each and every night, putting up points on the board. I believe they have 6 to 7 guys averaging 10 points or more. They're sitting at the second place in the Western Conference at 7-3 through 10 games. That's a vast improvement over last season. I mean, even without taking into account the bubble. So let's say we say from this point all the way to the start of the bubble, they're 15-3. That's good for, I mean, one or two in the entire league, not just the Western Conference. So what I see out of them is right now they're catching teams off guard. How are they going to do when they get into the bubble? How are they going to perform next year? You know, looking farther into the future, because I don't imagine, you know, they'll just throw themselves into the Western Conference Finals conversation. But when you look ahead in the next couple of years, what are you looking at from the Phoenix Suns? And I think Chris Paul, obviously, I always harp on how good of a leader he is and how good he is with the young guys. But him as an individual, he's still a very elite point guard. If you get CP3 into the fourth quarter with a guy like Devin Booker who can hit big shot after big shot and pull up from three, he can get to the cup, he can get his own shot. He's not somebody that just hangs out at the 3 point line. When you have those two guys in the backcourt, you have a good chance to win. But also, Ayton is a 20 and 10 level player. He's a number one draft pick. So, you know, there's a lot of guys on that team that you have to respect. And Jay Crowder is just adds another level of toughness to what already is being added in CP3. And then, you know, Devin Booker is a very tough player as we're starting to see. He's not a cupcake. And, you know, I like the toughness that they play with. They play pretty good defense, not great, but offensively they share the ball, hit the open man, get a lot of guys open. So, I like what I'm seeing right now. Like I said earlier in the episode, kind of, you know, kind of sucks that COVID is going to take over the next couple of weeks of the NBA season. Um, I like the idea of the division bubble, but we'll see the bubble back again in February and those COVID cases will drop. But we just got to hang on for another month and a half. And, you know, that's the recap for this week. I look forward to next week's episode. If you've been listening to this one, definitely tune in next week. I got my boys back. Miguel, Ryan will be on next week's episode. It's been touch and go, all because of COVID and you know being in the same vicinity and getting a lot of things worked out as far as that goes. So have them back, get them on the episode, get us all back together, get the band back together. It's gonna be exciting. Look forward to next week. Tune in, and that's a wrap. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the show. Special thanks to Curtis Murphy and Murphy Lee Training for sponsoring this episode. If you want to stay up to date on merchandise or simply update your game, please click the link in the description to stay up to date on all things Murphy Lee Training. Till next time, you know the rules.